Hello, and welcome to another low-quality HPC kitchen video. This time we're talking about documentation, or generally finding information. So my partner's just gotten back from traveling, and and this time, instead of going through the checklist myself, I printed it out and gave it to them. And they looked at this and said, "This is too long, I can't go through it all before traveling." And well, I mean, partly yes, that's true, because this has everything that I've ever needed to think about before traveling for the last 20 years and so on. Anytime I've forgotten something or had to do something before traveling, I would add it to the list. And it becomes long. So what does this mean? Is longer worse? So in some sense, you might say so, because it's too hard to read. But the point of the checklist is to have everything that you might need on it. So you can check through it. Once you've read, you make sure you've got everything, and then you can go off and be confident you haven't forgotten anything. If it had less on it, it would be easier to go through, but then you would still have to go think, what am I missing? And then think of that and maybe forget things. So it's actually longer than you would need otherwise. So actually the checklist needs to be long in order to be useful. So what's the metaphor here? The metaphor is the documentation to use all our computing resources. So if you try to print it out, it would be around this long. Of course, I didn't actually print it out just for a video. I'm not crazy like that. I printed out the first page, and then the rest is some other paper I've gotten. So this is long. What do we do? So do we want it to be shorter or longer? So if you ask me, the answer here is organization. So if you look at my packing list, it's sorted into 13 categories with titles that tell you when you may need each of the different things in it. So for example, right before you walk out the door, you look at the final check section. When you're packing, you would look at the clothes and maybe information section. If no one's staying at home and you need to turn stuff off and pack stuff up before leaving, there's a if no one is staying section, and so on. So this allows you to sort of have something long, but also go through and be able to use it in a way that's possible for humans. So what are the lessons here? So first off, if something is long, don't be scared. So if it's long, first look for the organization. So before diving and trying to find an exact page you need, look at the table of contents. Look at any quick references. Maybe look at the index, but that's not quite the organization you need. But get the big picture of it before you go and try to narrow down to the place to start, because the first page you find or a search engine brings you to might not be the actual right starting place. Know that not everything is needed all the time. So be able to not be intimidated that way and look more in depth. Ask for guidance. So if you ask me, part of the reason we've written this much stuff is not because we expect everyone to go read it all, but that when people come ask us a question, instead of needing to give everyone an individual answer, we can point them at the relevant page here. So the documentation is meant to be used along with us, not only instead of us. You can also ask your friends or colleagues, whoever that's doing the same kind of work, for information on like where to start, what they actually use, and so on. Finally, realize a lot of the stuff in here may be old and may be out of date. So if you're reading something and it looks a little bit off or not quite correct, well, then don't just go and give up, but use it as a starting point. Maybe come and ask for us to update it, or ask how it may be old. You might need to add in other stuff you're finding online with that if you're able to do that. But it's better than removing something and next time someone needs to begin, they're starting from the very beginning once again. Finally, there's something that I've been thinking about and have made here. So I made this little diagram of finding information in the past, if you can see. So in this theory, in the past, we didn't have all these computer systems and so on. So when you needed to find information, you would have to go to this middle layer of, say, your supervisor or the team expert you have, or a librarian or a research engineer, whatever, who can help you go and navigate the things and find whatever it is you're looking for. And that sort of made all the information more manageable. But then these days, we have computers, we have the internet, we have search engines and so on. So since you can find everything yourself, it's sort of expected that you try to find everything yourself. And if you ask me, this is not necessarily good. I mean, it's good that we have access to the information, but since there's this idea, oh, we don't need the team experts, we don't need people like that anymore, just let people find it all themselves, leads to information overload. And there's just too much for people to be able to navigate themselves and actually slow things down. So make sure you keep this in mind and use your support networks. Don't try to go alone. If you're writing information, if you're writing documentation for your own equipment, don't go and just do it without paying attention to the organization. I'd say make a good table of contents. Try to have the table of contents be all on one page so it's easy to navigate and see everything in it instead of having to click through different things. It's like if you make a really deep hierarchy where to know what's at the lower levels, you have to click down through several upper levels to see there. That makes it a lot harder to get the overview and know if you're going to the right places or not. I like to try to have one page where it's possible to do a Control F, like Control Find, within a single page and get a summary of where some keywords are. And from there, it should link you to the details. So first have a quick summary there, which is useful for quick reference, like in our cluster documentation, with links to the details. So that way, if someone generally knows what's going on, they can just use the quick reference and copy what they need. If they're new, they can get the overview and go to the more detailed pages. So with that being said, I need to actually clean up this stuff now. So thank you for watching and see you perhaps in the next low quality HPC kitchen video. Bye.